Welcome everybody to another episode of the Pierce Brothers. Today we're doing our most underrated guns. So if you haven't already watched it, go watch our most overrated guns that came out a week or two ago. And before we get started, we're trying hard to grow the channel. Make sure and like, share, subscribe, all that. If you'd like to join our channel, we do monthly VIP live chat or live video. And then you get early access to all of our videos as any level of the memberships we've got. We're trying to do some member-only videos as well to make it more worth your guys' while, so stay tuned for those. But with that, let's dive right into the most underrated guns.
All right.
You first, remember.
Short and sweet.
Short and sweet.
Make Porter go first. They've always done that. Even when he's a kid, you know, like instead of going through a culvert, Porter, you go first.
Yeah. Okay. Hey, Port, this is a really big hill. You sled down first. Let's see. If you die, then we won't go.
All right. Well, I think one of the first, my first picks is obviously the Ruger Mini 14. If you guys are new to the channel, go back and watch some other videos about the Mini 14. But I definitely think the Mini 14 does not get enough love and attention for what it is and what it's capable of. And, you know, it's just robust, reliable. It's actually fairly accurate, especially the newer ones. You know, some of the older ones definitely gave the Mini 14 the reputation for not being very accurate. But this one, how far was that? 750 yards. I got 3 out of 5 hits.
Yeah, 750, I think.
Yeah, so I mean that's pretty far for even an AR-15. You know, I mean, so you'd have to give credit where credit's due on the Mini 14. So
and they're fun.
And they're fun.
Yep. Yeah. And they're stylish. I mean, look,
stylish.
It's blue with walnut. Yeah.
All right, Jake.
So I don't have any of these guns anymore because I've sold off a lot of my guns to pay for bills and stuff. You know how that goes.
Yeah. Being
But
an adult sucks.
yeah, well, especially when you're married and the wife is sickly.
Sickly.
So the first gun I would pick would be the German Luger, the P08. Growing up, I always heard all these horror stories about how they were just jam-o-matics, you know, is what people always said, and you can never get through a magazine without some type of malfunction.
You never had too many issues with all the ones you've ever had.
I've owned probably 10 Lugers or so over the years. Everything from World War I era artillery Lugers through World War II and stuff. And they are legitimately ammo sensitive, so if you get an ammo type they like and use good magazines, they're generally pretty darn reliable. So, and the added benefit is they're extremely accurate. So,
I might throw in on that too, Jake. The CIP, which is Europeans' equivalent to US's SAMI, their pressures for the 9 are higher, and so a lot of the US ammo is soft for them, and it just doesn't cycle the action very well. Just not enough gas volume and blowback pressure, if you will.
Especially in the 60s and 70s when there weren't any US 9mm manufacturers. And so I'm pretty sure that's kind of where that reputation came from.
Well, and even today, there's still brands that you and I both know really won't cycle, and yet you use the right ammo or the right hand loads that's up to pressure, up to CIP standards, and they run fine.
Yeah. One brand that didn't work was Remington, 115 grain ammo. I tried that in one of my Lugers, and it was, I mean, literally almost every round I was having to
it turned into a single shot.
Yeah. So, but
the first Luger I shot, I mean, way back, I remember that was a really strange feeling. You'd shoot, boom, and have that toggle link come up right in your sight, line of sight. And it was an interesting experience. Everybody should shoot a Luger or P08 at some point because they're a historic gun, but they're very cool mechanically how they work. They're interesting.
All right, Joe.
All right. My first up will be the Ruger RXM. Have it in a Teton custom holster. If you need a holster, go use code PierceBros and get a discount on a holster. They do all kinds of holsters from chest, duty, outside the waistband, inside the waistband. But yeah, the Ruger RXM, these are kind of newer. It's basically a Gen 3 Glock clone. And in my opinion, it's better than a Glock. Better trigger, better features. Go watch our reviews on that to find out why. But I've got, I mean, we're about 1,500 rounds now in with no issues, no malfunctions. I haven't cleaned it yet. I want to just go and see if it ever gets dirty enough to not function. So it's pretty dirty, but yeah, very reliable so far. But like I said, better features than a Glock, and you're only spending about $400 street price on these, which is an amazing buy in my opinion for a reliable or compact handgun. So,
and probably the number one complaint on the Glock is the blockiness of the grip.
Yeah,
and they ergonomically have improved that grip substantially over the Glock.
Hugely. Magpul did an amazing job on the grip.
Yeah.
It's got more of a 1911 grip angle. Has a little bit of a bobtail cut on the back, so the way it fits in the palm of your hand is just really nice and comfortable.
I keep trying to trade Joe my 19 for my Glock 19. Won't do it.
Yep. No, but I mean, it's really, the sights are better optics cut system they've got, better slide serrations, just all around better. So, and really an undervalued gun for the money, very underrated. So everybody out there will think, oh, you just bought that because you're poor. But no, I mean, you're really getting a valuable gun for the money. You get a good bang for the buck. I mean, extremely good.
Well, and Luger tests stuff, I mean, extensively when they bring something out. This is not going to be a gun that a year or two down the road they're making significant changes because they didn't do their research before bringing it to the market. Exactly.
Well, and on top of that, they partnered with Magpul, which is one of the leaders in the industry. I mean, almost every AR-15 out there that you buy comes with a Magpul magazine. I mean, it's probably like 90% of the ARs on the market come with a Magpul magazine. And Magpul does really, really good at what they do. And the grip, they did an awesome job. They've got full-size grips coming out really soon, so I'm excited for that. But yeah, excellent gun for the money. Dad?
I guess I'm next. So the gun I'm going to talk about is a little bit of a sleeper sometimes. This is a Weatherby Vanguard. They were produced in Japan by Howa, and Roy Weatherby really was the instigator of this. He had his Weatherby Mark V rifle that was a very pricey rifle. It typically went 2 to 3 times the price of a competing, Winchester Remington rifle of the time. Not everybody could afford one. Roy knew he needed to come out with a rifle that was still of high quality but lower cost to compete direct with Remington, Winchester, and even Ruger at that time. And so he worked with Howa, designed this rifle, or they designed it together, and it became the Weatherby Vanguard in 1971. And it was traditionally chambered for common calibers like 30-06, 270, and so forth, 270 Winchester. It didn't require the Weatherby cartridges, so ammunition was affordable and the common and most popular cartridges. So this rifle is an interesting rifle though because it's progressed. So by the late 70s, Smith & Wesson began importing it under the Smith & Wesson model 1500. It didn't quite have as good a venting as this one has and a few things, but Mossberg even imported it. Today we have Howa that imports their model 1500. Of course, I brought a walnut stocked one because couple reasons. One, Weatherby still has this in their line. They still offer it with walnut for us old timers that still like wood stocks. They do it in a high gloss and an oil or satin type finish. But the vast majority of them you see out there being offered by Howa or Weatherby are some form of a synthetic stock that are the modern shooters want and like. Actually keeps costs down and so forth. But these rifles, in a nutshell, they were push feed action. They had an AR pattern or sockle pattern type rotating extractor, plunger ejector, 90-degree bolt lift with twin forward locking lugs. There was really nothing outstanding, no outstanding one feature on this rifle except it was a blend of features that worked very well. A side system safety. It's interesting when Nosler came out with their high-end Model 48 rifle, very similar in design to this, although made in USA. But they're very much a sleeper. Very good rifles, cold hammer forged barrels, long barrel life, very good accuracy, and yet the price is relatively modest, depending on who's gun and which model you buy and so forth. I think street prices on some of the Howas start in the 600 range, I believe, for a new rifle.
Give or take.
And then they go up depending on model and so on, clear up to, a couple thousand if I remember right on some of them.
Some of them are pretty pricey.
Yeah, but the actions remains the same. But that's a sleeper on the market right there. So And I think I think for the money, it's a really hard rifle to beat, in my opinion. So,
All right, my pick number 2 is actually a manufacturer, so it's not really a specific gun. GSG. So they make this STG-44 in 22. Very good gun for the money.
Yeah, super reliable.
Yeah, super reliable for an auto-loading 22. And then I've had this one since I was 16 or 17. But this is a GSG 1911 22. And you can get this one for about $350, brand new. And it's very reliable. I mean, I can usually shoot about a whole box of 500 to 1,000 rounds, give or take, of ammo before you have to really sit down and decide to clean it or anything, which that's a lot of shooting, even for a 22. You know, a 10-round magazine. Anyways, the only thing I have to complain about this particular gun would be the sights. The sights are just a little bit, they're plastic, so they're not the greatest for the standpoint of just robust and everything, but just as a practicing plinking 22, I think that you can't go too far wrong with a GSG in any of their lineup. We have these two that we've shot and used and have never had a complaint.
Yeah, we're at like 1,000 rounds on that STG 44 22 there, and had a handful, if that, of malfunctions total.
It's probably more or less the ammo, more or less.
Yeah.
Well, and one of them was me overloading the magazine, so
Yeah.
get too much pressure, so I didn't want to feed that first round. But
Yeah.
so
Yeah. So if you're looking for like a companion to your 1911s, like, you know, if you shoot a lot of 1911s and just want to practice and tune up without breaking the bank, I would definitely get one of these. It's full size, right after the pattern of a full size 45 ACP, so you know you get the same feel, ambidextrous safety as well, so that's always a good plus for most people. But yeah, I mean it's just a really underrated manufacturer, really. A lot of people haven't heard of them, so
Yeah.
didn't they make those for Colt at one time?
I don't know. I'd have to research that. I don't know though.
I think Colt made a few of them. I think. Don't quote me on that, but go ahead.
Yeah. So yeah, that's
right.
my second pick. Just
Jake,
a
my turn?
manufacturer.
One comment before you leave that, though, on the 1911 pattern gun, that costs about the same as a lot of your
Conversion kits. Yeah, a lot of
And yet you
conversion
have a whole
kits.
new gun. You have the kids over here shooting this one and training with it, and the triggers are good on those right out of the box. I mean, you
It's
know,
a pretty
it
good
makes
gun.
sense to practice on the frame that you're using a lot from a, trigger pull and grip safety and all that. But it's
Get
so
pretty
close.
close to
It's so
that.
close to the full size standard, 45 or whatever that it makes no sense to buy a conversion unit at that point.
Yeah, I'd rather have a whole nother gun.
Yep. Yep.
Less headache.
Yep. All right, Jake.
So for my number 2 pick, I'd pick the Smith & Wesson double action, single action Semi-Auto Series. I've owned a couple of the Model 39s, Model 59. My favorite of the whole series, though, was their 469 or their 6904 and 6906, I think is what the 469 evolved into. But so Smith & Wesson, if you guys don't know, they have this whole series starting from the 50s till the early 2000s, I think, is when they discontinued it in favor of the stupid polymer. I shouldn't say stupid, but in favor of the
The plastic guns.
plastic
Guns that'll
yeah.
melt when Jesus comes again.
Yeah.
They actually had a chart you'd spin to figure out which model and features. I mean,
Yeah.
It's quite a deal.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
But yeah, so for those of you guys that aren't aware, from the 50s, I think they started with the Model 39. It was a single stack 9mm, 8 rounds. But that quickly evolved into the Model 59, which was a double stack gun, and that evolved into, like, I think they call their 3rd gen series. The most popular is probably the 5906. My favorites, like I said, was the 469, and then those evolved into the 6904 and the 6906, something like that. But those were a compact carry type gun that had, melted down sights. They were snag free, hammer that was bobbed, and so when you decocked the gun and were carrying it, it was very similar to like a double action revolver with a bobbed hammer. Nothing to snag on. Had good capacity, I think 12 rounds.
13, I think.
Yeah, 12, 13, something like that. But especially for the era, so you consider it, those were coming out in the late 70s, early or 80s, somewhere in there.
Ahead of their time, weren't
They were ahead of their time.
So
definitely.
way ahead of their time. I remember when I was in college, it was all the rage for these single stack 9mm that everybody was carrying, like the Smith & Wesson Shield, the Springfield XDS or something like that. And yet, it's almost like everybody just forgot about these fantastic Smith & Wesson autos that had been around for decades at that point, like the 469 that had, 13 rounds ready to go, and yet not much. I mean, very similar size to the Smith & Wesson Shield, maybe a little bit fatter on the grip, but not much.
Yeah.
And so very underrated guns, in my opinion. So I think they're just kind of overshadowed by the Beretta 92 and the SIG 226 because they got military contracts and stuff, and of course in all the stupid movies like Die Hard and Lethal Weapon and stuff,
All the stupid movies.
Yeah,
Those are great movies, by the way.
Good movies, but like, I don't know. It's just funny how
Movies influence
influence
guns. A lot.
guns. Yeah. So
a lot.
yeah.
Look at the Colt Python. We mentioned that in our overrated guns, and I don't think the Python would be near as popular today if it is if it hadn't been in the Walking Dead series.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, what if
I've
you
never
had a
seen those.
GP100?
What's his face,
Then it would have been GP100s would have been the
Yeah,
rage.
right. And yet you never hear anybody talking about a GP100.
Well, I don't know
but-
about that. Even though I kind of pick on Pythons a little, I have to say they were a very sculptured gun.
Well, they are, and they've still got, there's a lot of people that love them, but I think the younger generation wouldn't care about them at all.
Yeah, wouldn't
if
give a
they
rat's
hadn't
ass.
been in, if they
I've
hadn't
never
been in
seen
Walking
them.
Dead.
I've never seen The Walking Dead.
Yeah,
That's the only reason why our generation likes them.
yeah.
It's because of
that's
The
it.
Walking Dead.
So what's his face carries a 6-inch.
Yeah.
Rick Grimes.
Yeah,
I think.
Rick. Yep.
Yeah.
So
I don't think I've seen.
Anyways, we're off
couple-
topic, Jake.
yeah.
Were you
yeah,
finished?
no, I'm finished. You guys started going on.
I know, we started going on about
and
movies
You're
and-
the one that took us
I'm sorry.
got us sidetracked on that one.
All right.
They're chasing
This
rabbits.
one, so my rifle choice for today is the Geissele, pretty much any Geissele AR-15. I think Geissele in general is not given enough credit for making a really high quality rifle. You look at a lot of people's lists of best AR-15 manufacturers, and Geissele's oftentimes left out of the list for whatever stupid reason. 'Cause it makes no sense. It's like Daniel Defense has all the attention from all the fanboys, and yet Geissele gets no love at all. There are people that own them and shoot them and use them, speak very highly of them, but I was just looking on a well-known gun reviewers web blog today, just in preparation for this, and they had their tiers of AR-15 manufacturers, and Geissele wasn't listed at all, not even in mid-tier, low-tier, or high-tier, nothing, when they should be in the high tier. They're a $2,000+ gun, extremely high quality. They hold their guns to very tight tolerances, so their guns are very well made.
Why were they omitted?
What's that?
Do you know why they were omitted?
No idea. And yet, yeah, people that are, anyways, I just feel like Geissele doesn't get enough credit. So in my opinion, they're underrated. They're not talked about enough in the AR-15 world for being one of the best out there. So you hear about VCM and Daniel Defense and LaRue and of course Knight's Armament and all these
Knight's
other
Armament.
people. And everybody's like cultish about them, and yet Geissele just gets overlooked all the time. And yet they're probably better rifle than most of those. I mean, you could argue that Geissele makes the best bolt carrier on the market. Anyways, cold hammer forged barrels. Anyways, yeah.
No,
I
of
could
course
go
they
on and
don't,
on.
Joe.
What's that?
Of course they don't.
Of course they don't. Yeah, and accuracy, that's another thing. People that shoot them and use them talk about how accurate they are. Very accurate rifles.
Out of the box.
I owned a Daniel Defense, and it was the Mark 12 model, and I couldn't get that thing to shoot worth anything. Anyways, but I've
when you
got
start spending $1,200 or more on an AR, you
they
expect
should be
that they
shooting
should
pretty
be
dang
shooting.
good. Yeah, and that Daniel Defense is a $2,500 gun, and it didn't shoot very well. And
Are you sure it wasn't just shooter error, Joe?
well, so for example, I have a BCM that has over 5,000 rounds through it, and that gun shoots better than that Daniel Defense did. So, and that Daniel Defense had a way lower round count, like way lower. So,
Of course, you let the barrel cool between rounds. And,
oh yeah, all of it.
no, I'm being sarcastic. Go.
I'm over there blazing away. You know, how fast can I?
Hotter that barrel. Hotter that barrel.
In Daniel defense, I'd go out and just shoot, and we were shooting accuracy and that, and it just never did shoot well. So, anyways, but that's my humble opinion. I think Geissele is overlooked.
All
right, Dad.
I was being sarcastic about it. It was cool, Joe. So my choice is going to be
excellence.
the Ruger Blackhawk. It's been around since 1955. The original was, of course, the flat top Blackhawk 357. It's been made in more configurations, barrel lengths, finishes than you can even count. But the Bisley model handles recoil extremely well. And this is not a plug on the Bisley, but maybe back up a minute before we get to that. The old model started in 55. Eventually, they added the 44 frame a couple years later, and then, of course, that model was discontinued. Both of them by 1972, 73. There was a transition to the new model. The new model allowed the safe carry of 6 rounds in the gun. And that's still what they use today. So it has a transfer bar basically that works very well, very straightforward system. But Smith & Wesson and Colt guys tend to look at Rugers like the redheaded stepchild, if you know what I mean. and yet I have to say Rugers are very well engineered. They're tough as nails. They handle heavy loads very well. They've been offered in a variety of calibers and barrel lengths. But when you consider the price for what kind of durability you get in these, and these guns always rank very high in reliability by anybody's standards, but I mean, it makes them a bargain. It really does. I know prices have crept up. You know, when they first came out, they were relatively inexpensive, you know, back in the 50s, but prices have crept up, but what hasn't? I mean, really,
I was going to say, but in comparison to other revolvers on the market, they're half the money.
Yeah, they still are.
Yeah.
And in my mind, that still makes them a remarkable value and bargain. This gun is a 44 Magnum. I've had it many years. It's been used as a test revolver anytime I'm testing loads or ammunition. Manufacturers send me prototype ammo or experimental ammo. I've tested it in this gun many, many times. And man, it's just dead nuts reliable. It's been fired literally, I don't even want to state how many, but a lot. It's been shot a lot, and yet it's still solid, locks up tight. I mean, that's just a very bulletproof gun. Let me put it this way: I love Model 29 Smith & Wesson 44 mags. If I would have put through a Model 29 what I've done to this gun, that 29 would be ready for retirement. And this gun, it's got a lot of life left in it. So the Ruger Series Blackhawk, large frame, 357 frame, whatever, doesn't matter. Old model, new model, doesn't matter. Very reliable guns.
Thanks.
Yep. Anything else from you guys? Is that all of them?
I think that's it for me.
Cool.
Yep.
Let us know what your most underrated gun is. There's lots of them out there. A lot of good guns that don't get enough love.
Black powder guns.
Yeah.
Anything and everything black powder's underrated.
Jake's on his black powder kick right now. So
Jake's the equivalency of a moonshiner. He makes his own black powder.
Yep.
He's having a ton of fun doing it.
yeah. Yep. All right, guys. Well, we'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.